She answered quickly and asked if it was me. I told her yes and said it was nice to hear her voice after all this time. Then she said, without any pleasantries, it wasn't me sending you messages. I told her I'd figured that much out already. I don't think you understand, she said. I have never once in my life sent you any sort of communication. I don't know you at all. A part of me was screaming, she's lying. She just sounded so certain. It almost felt like drowning. Because if she wasn't lying, a whole chunk of my youth was a lie. I told her all I knew about her, personal things, and she said they were true. I told her how I found her through her Wiccan homepage on Angelfire, and I described the page to her and the webbering. She said she didn't make that thing and I should never have gone there. It's bad, she said, and wouldn't elaborate. What do you mean? I asked. Then I told her all the details I knew of her personal life, about her likes and hopes and dreams and her family. She said it was all true. But whoever told him about it, it wasn't her. That's why she wanted to talk to me now. So I would know the truth. She remembered how it used to happen every now and then a long time ago. She would have people tell her they talked to her online all night, but she knew she'd never spoken to them. And they'd tell her she was doing things she knew she'd never done. She was asleep or sometimes not even in town. Then they'd get weird or disappear. She remembered this one time she was doing her math homework, and a random guy messaged her with the solution to the problem. She was terrified. But she asked him how he knew her math problem. Was he spying on her? And he told her, no. She asked him for help. She didn't believe him. So he sent her a screenshot. The message was from a day ago. She'd just gotten the homework that day. She said the worst it got was when she messaged a close friend of hers she saw online on ICQ. Her friend replied with, "Who is this?" She thought it was just a joke, so she said something silly, she didn't remember what. Her friend said she didn't think it was cool to be hacking Angelica's account. Or if this was her brother, to knock it off. Angelica swore it was her. And her friend replied, I know you're not Angelica, because Angelica's sitting right here with me. She knew this friend wouldn't joke like that. She didn't have the imagination for it. Whatever it was, her friend really believed she was in the room with her. But she wasn't. Her friend always insisted she was there that night. She said Angelica was showing her her cool, new homepage. The friendship fell apart after that, because her friend got strange. That was the first she'd ever seen of the homepage, and she knew it was bad juju. I asked her if she'd ever heard of a hole. She went silent for so long, I thought we lost connection. She said she's still there, she just never expected to hear that again. There was this guy who used to harass her back when she was just about 12 or 13, on IRC. He called himself Holy Moses. He started off nice. He seemed to understand all her problems. And to know what she was thinking. At 12, that felt romantic. But she noticed weird things, like he didn't seem to have any life or personality. Any time of the day, he was always online and active. But no one knew anything about him. One day he started telling her stranger things. Like, do you remember the 3 men dressed as bees at the Halloween party? She didn't know what he was talking about. 8 years later at a college Halloween party, she saw 3 men dressed as bees sitting in the corner of the room. They weren't doing anything. Just sitting still and staring at the floor. Then they turned to her and their eyes looked so black. She ran out of the party. Another time he told her, you can drink and smoke, you know. "You died in a car crash." It scared the life out of her. She briefly wondered if she really was a ghost, she said. When she told him to stop telling her things like that, he said there was a place she could go that was for special people only. And she'd never need to go anywhere else. It was a place on the internet that was infinite in all directions. She said she remembered him saying that specifically. And everything she needed would be there. It was called the Hole, and she just had to send him a message with the letter M to get there. She actually tried to do it, because things weren't going well for her. But she sent the letter N by accident, because her hands were shaking. Holy Moses went offline and she didn't see him after. Until 2010, when she got an email from the New Commandments at holymoses.com saying, "You coming?" If anyone was impersonating her, she said that was the most likely person. At the time, she was so naive. Looking back on it now, talking to me, she said he was the creepiest person she'd ever encountered. Just thinking of him creeped her out, and made her afraid he'd sense it somehow and come for her. "I don't know you, but I told you all this for a reason," she said. "What you're digging into, be careful. There are a lot of very bad things hidden in the old internet. Things the Twitter and Tumblr generations will never see. And lucky them." She promised we'd never speak again and bid me a good life before hanging up. I was left reeling. What she said meant whoever I spoke to for years in my teens, I don't even know who that person is. It was all a lie. And why? What's so interesting about me? I wondered how much else in my life was trickery. Before I could dwell on it too much, Ben called me back. He said he'd managed to track the server to a storage room in a sub-basement below his office. He was aware of the basement, but it was abandoned years before he even started working there due to ventilation and mold issues. It's just full of old IT crap now and some storage lockers. Someone had set up the server in a storage closet, and the closet itself was completely obscured by old computer equipment, probably for years. He figures that's why it was never found. Meaning the server had been running under their noses all that time. When he gets in, he sees an old desktop hooked up to a landline. Beside it, he saw a notepad with "Please Stop" written on it. That alone made him want to get the hell out of there. The whole place is covered in thick dust, too, and his allergies were acting up. Somehow the server was still running. He has to hook up a monitor and keyboard just to interact with it. One thing he said in passing really disturbed me. He said, "The ironic thing is, the server was built with an auto shutdown date. And the date was the same day I was there to shut it down. Dude, it's like it knew I was going to be there that day." He said after shutting it down, he went and told his manager all about it. Just a fun IT anecdote. His manager told him there's really only one man who could have set that up. Back in the early 90s, he said, a guy worked in the department they all called Milky, 'cause his last name was Milk and he was really white. He was a little eccentric, too. That had nothing to do with milk, it just happened to be true. Then he had a burnout and he got a lot eccentric. It started with him pounding his desk. The manager at the time asked him if he was okay. According to Ben's boss, he answered with, "There's no way out." Then he heard Milky say something like, "You think you exist, but you're just another part of it. Everything is just another puzzle. Do I exist?" After that, the rest of the department started getting nervous around Milky. "You just got bad vibes around him," the manager said. It got worse. Every day around 3 p.m. Milky started standing in a dark corner of the office, facing the wall. He'd mutter some things. The guys joked that he was at his prayers, but he always come away looking more upset than anything else. Once a new guy asked him if he was a Muslim and he replied with, "I'm sorry." The guy asked what he was sorry for. "It was telling me how your children die," he answered. Toward the end, before they fired him, he started telling them about how he found a place on the internet that wasn't made by humans. The guys joked that it was Skynet, but he said it wasn't created by machines either. It was always there, the internet just found it by accident. It showed him things he couldn't unsee. Ben's boss even recalled that he started to tear up. Ben's boss told him it was sad to see such a smart guy clearly losing it. Even though Milky was never caught stealing anything, equipment disappeared during his shift. Probably the equipment that went into the server. When they fired him, he told them that the secret place got into his head and that he'd sometimes wake up in strange places and had no idea how he got there. They never saw him again after he left that day. Ben said, after that story in that creepy Gopher server, he straight up refused to look into the hole. I told him it really wasn't that bad and to quit being a wimp. That's when he said he hadn't told me everything. The server had a link up, through the phone line, to a really old webcam. One of those low residential webcams where the image updates every 4 seconds or so. It had been running non-stop since '97. All of the saved images just show the front of someone's house. The same house back to '97. He sent me some of the photos. Because he knew what it was. It was my house. Why would this guy have been spying on you all those years ago, man? How did he even know you? It doesn't make any sense, and it honestly scares the shit out of me. And here's what I told him. The thing about that webcam is, I just bought this house 2 years ago. That camera was pointed here before I ever moved in. It was just an astronomically improbable coincidence. At least, that's what it should be. But I didn't believe that's what it was any more than he did.